But now, dear ChessKid, you actually have a choice. Are you right-handed or are you left-handed? If you're riding a snowboard, we would call that regular or goofy. Are you regular or are you goofy? Which foot do you go down the mountain first? Let's take a little walk down memory lane. The year? 1986. Funmaster Mike was playing in his first state championship. I won 3 games, but I lost 2. And you know why I lost? Because I did not know about the back rank checkmate. Back rank, the back break checkmate. You don't have a bad back. You're not an old man, but it kind of felt like my back was broken because I had a couple of chess games where I was doing really well, and then I moved my rook off of the back rank, and then my opponent moved the rook all the way down to d1, and I got put in checkmate. You know why I lost those games? Because I simply did not know this checkmate. So today, we're going to learn it. Maybe we're going to review it. We're going to look at some more complicated examples where even chess masters and chess grandmasters forgot about the power of the back rank checkmate. Now, before you write to us any lovely or angry letters, yes, I know this is not checkmate, but once the white rook moves back, then of course the black rook will take, and that will officially be checkmate. Now, I always thought that, especially when I was a kid, there was a little bit of injustice to this checkmate, because I remember going to my coach afterward and saying, "Coach, I castled my king. I kept a wall of pawns in front of my king, just like you told me to, and I got put in checkmate as a result because my king actually wants one of those pawns to be missing so he can move off the back rank." And we are going to talk a little bit today about how to defend against this back rank. By the way, let's go back to our starting position. It should be noted that it's much harder for black to get put in a back rank checkmate because his king is castled to the left side of the board. So even if this rook moves, let's say to the square d5, and we move a rook all the way up, that is not checkmate. First of all, the black rook can move back, but the king always has this square. The king does have an escape when he castles to the queen side. So kind of a, nice little fun fact there. Okay, let's move on though to our very first grandmaster game. And yes, oh yes, this is a game played between 2 grandmasters, and black has just played the move rook on e8 to d8. Don't believe me? Well, look really carefully, and you'll see how the e8 square is very lightly colored. See? Little hint there. Little detective work. And black is simply saying, hey, you want to trade rooks? Now, white should do any sort of simple decision in this game. Probably the best thing for white to do is just to trade. It's not like white's ahead material, but white's position is pretty good. Of course, black will take back. The material is equal. However, in this position, this diagonal is really, really weak for black. And also, black has a couple of isolated pawns, so white's a little bit better. And now if I was white, I would push one little pawn, one square, as a famous grandmaster likes to say, push. And when you play pawn to h3, now your king can always get out. We have a word for this in chess. When you create air for your king, some of you might know it. It's called Luft, or if you're a little bit better at speaking German than me, Luft. And it's not 99 Luft balloons. Oh no, it's 1 Luft square for the king. And what that does is it gives the king a little bit of air to breathe. By the way, in case you haven't figured it out by now, this pawn can never take because it is an absolute pin. So in case you're wondering, there you go. The arrows prove to you what maybe you were thinking. But oh no, that's not what white did. Let's go back, and we're about to experience not a comedy, but a tragedy. I've always taught you in chess, when you face an attack, you should make a defense. Now, technically speaking, I know, this rook is not technically in danger because the queen is guarding it. However, if we make that queen do absolutely anything else on the board, rook takes rook is going to be a back rank checkmate. And in the game, there was a tragedy because white played knight to f6 check. Now, that knight is deep in the heart of Texas, or in this case, deep in the heart of the king side. So we got to get rid of it. Black took. White took back, and now, dear ChessKid, I'm going to have you help me with the final move. We need to deflect, or decoy, or trick this queen away from the rook, and you can do so at any cost, because remember, if you take the white rook, it should be a checkmate. So how do we do it? Drum roll, please! It is not pawn h5. If you thought it was pawn h5, well, that's an okay move. The problem is there actually is one square the queen can move to defend the rook, and that is queen to the square e2. By the way, it should be noted, if the queen goes to f3, then you can trade queens, and when the pawn takes back, it's true, it's not checkmate, but it is a free rook. The white king does have a little bit of Luft, but it's not going to be enough because white is down a rook. So pawn to h5 does not quite get the cheddar. Instead, we need a stronger move. We need a move that attacks the queen and takes away the e2 escape square, and that move was queen to e4.
Hello.
Ooh, how majestic. The computer announces that black has won the game because in real life, white resigned. Now, what a pretty final position. This rook is actually being attacked twice. It's being guarded, nada, and this queen is being attacked, so every major piece for black is hanging, and yet white has no good moves. If the queen takes, we get ourselves a back rank checkmate. Starting with rook takes rook, the queen blocks, rook takes queen is checkmate. And there's nothing else you can do. There's no way you can save the queen and still guard the rook. Remember, if the queen moves to f3, I'm not even going to show it to you again because you already remember. We're going to play queen takes queen, pawn takes queen. Thank you very much for the rook. Black will go on to win the game. And by the way, if you take my rook, let's say you take with the rook, I'm not even going to take your queen. I'm going to go for a back rank checkmate. Oh, yes. Queens can do back rank checkmate too. So there's no good moves for white, and that's why white resigned. Now, if you got that one right, or even if you did it, you're probably going to be able to get this one right because it's a very similar idea. Let's see if you learned something, okay? Now, it should be noted that white is better in the starting position. White has a rook for a knight, but you know what? Black also has this very annoying passed pawn, which is guarding the bishop. So black is very, very close to equal in this position. But you know what black forgot to do? Yeah, black forgot to guard the back rank. In fact, the number one computer recommendation is pawn to h6 to give the king a little bit of lift, a little bit of air. Actually, kids, just like Abraham Lincoln, I cannot tell a lie. Technically, by a very, 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 very small margin, bishop to f6, which guards the rook's invasion on d8, is the number one defensive move. However, I want you to play pawn h6. It's much, much safer in the long run, okay? But either of those moves, at least keep an eye on the back rank. But I'd play h6, okay? Instead, in this position, black went for glory and played the move knight to f4. Now, maybe from a practical perspective, this move is reasonable because we're actually threatening checkmate. The knight's aiming at g2, the queen is aiming at g2, and we're about to have queen takes g2, and as David Howell says, the kiss of death. Well, he doesn't exactly say it that way because he's got a British accent, which I'm not going to try to repeat, but the point is there's going to be a checkmate. Queen and helper, kiss of death, whatever you want to call it, that is going to be big news for white. Now, white can't exactly push the pawn because you know what? Oh yeah, it's still a kiss. Yeah, not the kind you want though. Queen to g2 is checkmate. Now, I guess you could play f3. F3 is a reasonable move. I know you're pushing pawns in front of your king, but you do have my written permission to play f3 if you want to be an okay player, but I think you want to be a great player. And to that end, we're going to find a fantastic move. Can you find a move that stops queen takes g2 checkmate and somehow takes advantage of the fact that black's back rank is only guarded by this queen? We don't have enough money to play the Jeopardy theme music, so I'm just going to hum something that's totally not the Jeopardy theme music, but might sound a little bit like it. Okay, I can't do the rest because I ran out of breath, and also we don't want any lawsuits coming our way. So do you have the answer? Yes, you do. It is queen to e4. Bang!
Hello.
Such a good move that black had to resign. Now the queen threatens the knight, threatens the queen, blocks the checkmate on g2, and there is no good way for black to save the queen, to save the knight, and to guard the back rank. If you play queen takes queen, thank you very much. Rook to d8, and you're the star of the next ChessKid video. Now the queen can block, of course, but it is back rank checkmate. Now you might be thinking, Fun Master Mike, call on me. Okay, you there over in front of the iPad. Yeah, the smart one. Yeah, you. What's your idea? Oh, you found queen to b8. Ah, very nice. But the problem is, I will now take your knight. I will reintroduce the threat of back rank mate, and you still can't take my queen because rook to d8 is still checkmate. Now, you could play on. You could just keep moving your queen over or something, but now you are actually down an entire rook, which means you have virtually no chance to win the game. And so that's probably why black did not play on. Okay, moving on to our next example. Boom! Here we go. Now this game is totally equal. Both sides have a queen. Both sides have two rooks. Both sides have the same number of pawns. Look at that. I just did your work for you by counting the material. But white thought that there was a fork. Queen to d5. Is it population Forktown population U? Well, not so sure. Now, the king is definitely in danger. and the pawn is definitely in danger. And in this position, black just kind of pretended that he didn't see that his pawn was in danger. He says, "I see nothing." Okay, that was the very first time and the very last time I will ever quote Hogan's Heroes, because I never saw the show. But you know what? Some quotes are so famous that I know them, even though they took place before my time. But enough about me. Let's get back to chess. Black played the brilliant, I guess, kind of queen to f2, now offering a trade which white should just accept. But white did not see what was coming, and white played queen takes d6, because white's thinking, hey, thank you for the pawn. Now I'm double attacking this pawn. Now I'm attacking this pawn. I'm going to eat all your pawns. But the problem is, this poor rook. Yeah, he's guarding the back rank. That's true, right? But he's also guarding something else. What else is the rook guarding? Oh, yeah. He's guarding f2. And that is what we call an overworked piece. Now, maybe you're thinking that black can play rook all the way up to a1, which is a fascinating idea. Because then if the rook takes, he's no longer doing his other job of guarding f2. Then we'll play queen takes pawn check. The king will move. We'll play queen f1 check, brilliant queen sacrifice. The rook has to take, and then rook takes rook is mate. And all of that is super great thinking, but there's a problem. Let's go all the way back. Is there any rule in chess that says that white has to play rook takes rook? There's no rule that I know of. Yeah, unfortunately not. White actually has a couple of defensive moves. The best one is probably rook to f3. Oh no! The rook is stopping all of our firepower on the f2 square. And once we save our queen, well, pretty much all of our pieces are hanging in this position. In fact, you could take to save the rook, right? And when the king takes, then you could actually move your queen to defend. But remember, in this position, white is already ahead one pawn. So white can take, and if I were white, I might be greedy and take some more pawns. Those are probably okay chess moves. But I would also consider in this position just trading queens, because I've got an extra pawn, if I'm white, in the endgame. Okay, let's go all the way back. Now, that was one possible thing that white could do if you play rook to a1 on the first move. Let's go back. Let's use the same idea of the overworked rook, but let's invert the moves. If you don't know what it means to invert something, it means to turn upside down. And in this position, we're not going to play rook to a1 first. We're going to play the other one first. We're going to play queen takes f2. I know that looks like the crazier version, giving up our queen, but I promise you, it totally works. Now, if the king moves, queen takes rook, back rank checkmate. And the only other move is to take. But now the rook's not guarding the back rank, so you know what to do. Rook to a1 check. There's only one legal move. The rook has to go back. But now, dear chess kid, you actually have a choice. Are you right-handed or are you left-handed? If you're riding a snowboard, we would call that regular or goofy. Are you regular or are you goofy? Which foot do you go down the mountain first? I don't know. But you can take the rook. With either rook, it matters not, as Shakespeare would say. It's going to be checkmate. I actually don't know which one's prettier, but because the theme today is back rank mate, let's take with this rook, because then we have two rooks in the back rank. It's like double checkmate, if such a thing exists, but black definitely wins. Okay, I've got two more examples for you. Hold on tight, because, well, the last one's the best one. Okay, here we go. In this position, the position is actually totally equal, but black plays an incredibly tricky chess move. Black plays the move knight to e4. Now, first of all, you're probably thinking, hey, that's a cheeky little move, if I actually can introduce a British expression. Obviously, if the queen takes, white loses the queen. And if the pawn takes, now the file's open. And once again, you can take with the rook or the queen. It matters not, Shakespeare says, but take with the queen because it just looks cooler. And that is a back rank checkmate. Now, of course, white saw that. White did not take. White actually was a grandmaster, okay? So white played the move rook to c1. Does that defend? I mean, certainly the idea of the move is to go back and guard that back rank before something bad happens, but let's see if it actually works out. Rook to c1. It looks like he's guarding the back rank, right? Oh no, but wait a minute. Black wins with this really cool redirection. The queen comes all the way from f7 all the way to a7. Hello. This is the problem, kids, when you move your f-pawn without my written permission. The white king is in check. There's nothing good to block with. And if you move your king, well, if you move your king over, then knight to f2 forks your king and your queen. But actually, it gets worse. Your king has to move back. And I'm not even going to take your queen. I'm going to play knight to h3 double check. And then when your king moves, I'm going to play queen all the way to g1, and I guess we can kind of count that as a back rank mate, right? A piece did invade on the back rank. Yeah, kind of counts, okay? Now, white saw that was coming, so we go back to this position. After that first check on a7, white tried to move pawn to c5, which really is the only attempt at blocking. But notice that actually opens up the bishop. You've already got the rook aiming at it. Now, rook takes bishop would be checkmate, except the white rook would take you back. The white rook is doing what we call X-ray defense. The white rook is going through the black rook to defend. So, in this position, all we need to do as black is distract the white rook. Then rook takes f1 is checkmate, and the brilliant queen takes c5, end of the chess game. White resigned in this position. Hey, how come none of these grandmasters are actually allowing the checkmate to happen? Yeah, I don't know either. It's more fun to sit on the board. So I'm going to show you. If the rook takes the queen, then the rook is no longer doing X-ray defense, and rook takes bishop is checkmate. Very, very cool queen sacrifice checkmate. Okay, here's a final one. You're going to be rewarded for sticking around until the end. In fact, there's definitely a reason that I waited to show you this one last, because it actually looks like white is going to checkmate black. Look at this. White's got 3 heavy pieces on the d file, and white is possibly thinking about one day moving the queen down to the square d8. And if we ever take, then the rook might take back, and if you could picture all that, we would be in back rank checkmate. Now, I know. You're already getting your letter ready. You've already got your stamp out, okay? Dear Fun Master Mike, I know you're an old man, so please let me politely tell you that the rook is pinned to the king. Okay, I actually did spot that before you finish your letter, okay? So I'm going to save you the stamp. You don't have to write to us. I'm not saying that this idea, queen to d8, is coming up right away, but it's certainly an idea that white is thinking about for the future. So black says, you know what? I'm going to be a little bit prudent here, a little bit careful, and I'm going to stop back rank checkmate from ever happening to me. And by the way, chess kids, amazingly, this actually is the computer's #1 recommendation. I kid you not. Here's that Shakespeare guy again. And pawn h6, that really was the computer's #1 recommendation. Now the king has luffed for the rest of the game, and there's absolutely no chance of black getting put in back rank checkmate. Now maybe you're thinking, wait a minute. So it's actually white that's going to be put in back rank checkmate, but white's pushed all these pawns in front of his king. Ooh, that's true. But the black pawn is so far down the board. The black pawn is doing a great job pinning that white king to the edge of the chessboard. So yeah, it's actually white that's going to get put in back rank mate. Here is how that happened. Queen to c7.
Hello.
Not really sure what that does, but black's position was much better anyway. Then we had rook to d4, simply putting pp on the pp. That rook is an absolute pin. Now that rook needs some help. So the queen rushes back to c3 to defend her rook. But then we had rook takes rook. And in this position, white played the very unfortunate queen takes. Now I know rook takes might have saved the game a little bit longer, but if you play rook takes, that rook's at an absolute pin still, and we can actually play rook to d8, and that would win the rook. So white's idea was to trade queens, and if black takes, it'd be a massive mistake, because then the rook would actually take back. The white rook is more active than black's, and you know what? There's still a little bit of fight left in white. Okay, it's going to be a little bit hard to win this one. So let's go back. Instead, there's an unbelievable move here that I'm sure white missed, but black was a grandmaster, and he did not miss this. So, can you find it? I'm not going to hum again, because I've been talking for so long. I don't want to pass out from lack of oxygen. The winning move is rook to d8, leaving the queen en prise and seemingly putting the rook en prise. But remember, if the queen takes the rook, we're going to call foul because the king is in danger. That'd be pretty cool if we had fouls in chess. Don't believe me? Queen takes rook and yeah, the computer just rejected my move. Well, if you leave the queen there, you're going to lose the queen, and the only other option would be to play queen takes queen, and that would allow the very beautiful rook takes rook checkmate. The rook puts the king in checkmate. The pawn takes away all of the Luft squares, popping all 99 Luft balloons, if anybody understands that musical reference. And that's a pretty cool way for us to end our video. Well, there you go, chess kids. Even if you've seen back rank checkmate once or twice before, just know that it could happen using a startling display of sacrifices and deflections. You've always got to watch out for it. But if you make Luft for your king, first of all, you'll be safe. And second of all, you'll speak German.